All right, guys, we are back in the garage working on the 1965 Cushman Trailster. And what we want to do in this video is get the entire front end set up on this bike. So that means we get the wheel and tire with the hub and the bearing, the front suspension on the front fork in the headset. That means we got to assemble all the parts and press in the lower bearing cup. We got to do the upper bearing and the handlebars on top of that. So we'll have everything from the tire to the handlebars put onto the bike. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this front suspension and we're gonna clean out the inner pivot areas. We got quite a few bits of old hardware that need to be cleaned up. We're not gonna do this all on camera, but we've got to clean up that old hardware. We've got to clean up the old bushings, and we're going to start with cleaning up these pivots. Okay, we got some new grease zerks. This is the old one. The old ones look all rusty and painted and plugged up. Here's the new one. So we're going to thread some new grease zerks into our suspension pivots. Nice. Tighten up these grease zerks. Spend some time off camera cleaning up these bushings and re-greasing them. Now we've got to press them back into this leading link front suspension pivot. We've installed our grease nipples, so we want to orient this outer bearings hole in the same direction as that nipple. All right, we've got a threaded rod with these nuts and washers on it. Now we're going to use that to press this bushing back down into the leading arm pivot. Okay, we've got our front suspension link, front suspension leading arm, all set up with the bearings that have been pressed out, reconditioned, pressed back in, re-greased with new grease zerks on them. Now we're going to turn our attention to the front forks and installing those. There are quite a few parts that go into this steering head, and I've got them all basically laid out. I've spent a ton of time off camera either cleaning these parts up with a wire wheel or buying all new parts, like these felt seals, this top bearing cup, and so forth. Now what we want to do is install this top bearing cup into the bottom of the headset. All right, we've got our lower bearing cup. I think I called it top bearing cup before. I meant to say lower bearing cup. This is the top bearing cup, and we pounded that in a previous YouTube short. Here's our threaded rod through the headset, and we're going to use that same method we used to press in the front suspension leading link bushings to press this lower bearing cup into the bottom of the steering head. What I've done here is I've flipped the frame upside down to have gravity working for me instead of against me. And as I've been playing with this, I've got it pressed in most of the way. We're just going to finish it up here. Okay, with our lower bearing cup installed and our top bearing cup installed, we're ready to put the forks onto the bike. Flip the frame upside down again, and I've placed these ball bearings in some grease into the bearing cup. I didn't film all that because, of course, I ended up dropping half of them on the floor and they scattered everywhere. But we're going to make sure that we don't drop anymore. We'll put the forks in here and then get to the upper bearing. Got all our ball bearings installed in the upper bearing cup. We've got our felt seal in place and we're topping that off with the top of the bearing. All right, we've got our steering head bearings adjusted, steering's in place, and now we just got to top it off with the handlebar. Okay, we've got ourselves a steering system on our Cushman Trailster. Let's get that front suspension on. We have got the leading link mounted to the forks. We've got our wheel bearing on our wheel, that assembly on the leading link. We got the forks on the steering head and the handlebars on top of that. We've even got our front fender mounted. We have a complete front end to the Cushman Trailster. You may be asking yourself, hey Gary, where's the brake? Well, there is no brake. There's only a brake on the rear, which we have yet to do. This is from a time when a front brake was an optional extra. And whoever bought this bike back in 1965, they did not go for that option. So there you go. We got a complete front end on our Cushman Trailster. Thanks for watching.